Hello guys, this is Tynrael. Welcome back to New Horizons, a modded career Let's Play in Kerbal Space Program. Today, we are going to launch a rocket to send Bob on a one-way mission to Laythe. Well, that is a possible outcome. That is not what I actually hope to happen. I have worked on developing a vessel that will be able to bring him home. It has a minor caveat, and I'm actually going to do a little, or rather a quick breakdown of the rocket and what I intend to have happen before I launch it and continue with the episode, so you guys can be cued in on how things were supposed to happen if there's some sort of catastrophic failure. As you might have been able to guess from the videos, I have also decided to do an aquatic landing. So that's something I haven't ever done before, where the rocket didn't just tip over and I took off. On Eve, it was a one-way mission. On Kerbal, I just recover it. So this is new to me, and I'm hoping that my design works for being able to return home. Here in the alarm clock, you can see I also have time stops for maneuver nodes and spheres of influences. The maneuver nodes are probably about 1/3 to 25% of the way prior to the sphere of influence, so I can do some minor course corrections. And then the sphere of influence is obviously entering that body. And you can see that Titanus is more than 6 years away for its actual encounter. So that's really far off. And Laythe, 2 years, several hundred days for Laythe. So it's going to take several hundred more days for Bob to actually get to Laythe. And we will definitely be fast-tracking these. But I want to get several more missions going that may have sooner encounters and progress through a queue based on priority of who is going to be coming up first. So obviously we're going to have the Laythe probe come first for our big external mission, followed probably by Laythe, because no, it'll probably be Bob. He'll actually get there before Laythe because the difference is so great. So we'll be doing Laythe and then Laythe again, and then finally we'll get to Laythe and Titanus eventually. I've canceled out some of the encounters or the perfect times to actually go to some of the other bodies, because the way it was going, they'd all have a very low cost to get there within the next 2 years. And I don't want to be sending rockets to everywhere at the same time, because I haven't actually had contracts that send me out of the sauna system. But this is the vessel that I think can get me to Laythe with Bob and back home again. Half of this is just to get it into space, so I'll just get rid of those. This is what I want in orbit around Kerbal. It shows only 5,600 or so meters a second delta V. That's because most of these tanks are empty. This rocket with all the other parts is at about 251 out of 255 parts, and it costs a couple million to increase that possibility, so that's not happening. But I'm able to get this into orbit, I believe, and then I will dock a refueling ship, which I have also been working on, to fill these tanks and send it on its way. The delta V reading when these are full is also off because this ship is not quite built to have a linear staging set up, and I will show you why. So the first thing to decouple is going to be these central 4 tanks, so I can have the longest amount of burn to hopefully get my maneuver to Laythe with all of that fuel, and then jettison all of that mass. So then I will be left with this. Actually, prior to jettisoning those, I'm getting rid of this giant solid tank. This is mainly here just for an extra oomph to get into orbit, because these poodles are not that powerful. And although most of these tanks are empty, it is still quite a lot of mass. So this goes, and it feeds into those other 4 in a semi-asparagus manner. And then those will go, and hopefully by the time my rocket is at this point, I will have an encounter with Laythe. These 4 tanks are to allow me to slow down. If I have enough fuel left, I may try actually landing this component on the moon that is around Laythe. I don't remember what it is called. But either way, I will hopefully be using this fuel to possibly land on the moon, getting an actual orbit, and getting close to Laythe to prepare for the re-entry of this ship. And what I will remain with is this here. This central area has a decoupler to remove this center area, which I will make sure is full of fuel from those 4 tanks in case I burned any of this off earlier, because this is my return trip home. This is about 7,000 delta V when I connect this central part of the rocket on it, and I think that's enough to get me home. But I'm sending this down to Laythe. It's got some extra structural support, these fuel tanks, which are actually for fuel. I was initially using empty ones as buoyancy, and they're feeding into the center, so I will be able to lift off of the water, because I don't think hopefully this won't tip over, and I will be able to go slow enough with 8 parachutes that these just settle in the water. I've also stuck experiments on each of these so that Bob can actually use this ladder to swim around and go collect all of these for the larger amount of science that they will give. And then Bob will take off from Laythe, which has a lighter atmosphere, and it's also only 80% gravity for Kerbin. So this should be able to take off and get back into orbit around Laythe, where it will hopefully rendezvous with this. In the off chance that I use too much fuel here to be able to actually get a rendezvous, I also have a probe core on this, as well as some EVA and monopropellant, so that this can connect with the main vessel with Bob if it has to. And that is the plan. Let's launch this rocket and see how it goes. This vessel is not very aerodynamic, and it doesn't go incredibly fast. So this will be primarily a large amount of vertical so that I can get myself higher, probably above the 70,000 for the low Kerbal orbit, because I will have to circularize with the slow poodles. So I will see you guys when I get there, and hopefully I have enough fuel. Some of these tanks are empty, some of them have a little bit of fuel, and we will see how far I get. So there we have it. This ship, it was a little dicey. I didn't get as much horizontal thrust as I thought I was going to out of the twin bores. And I also noticed that they were destroyed, so they weren't saved by the parachutes. I don't know why. It's unfortunate. But I was able to save it with these lower thrust engines and just pushed right through the atmosphere. I heated up quite a bit, and you might have seen the red plasma and all of that, but I got enough horizontal speed going that I lifted myself up out, and now I just need to refuel this thing. You can see that I have 3,600 out of 43,000. So I imagine I have a craft that's made out of 4 of these tanks, and I think that it may take 3 or 4 trips of those to fill this with fuel, But that is what I will do next. I will see you there while I'm rendezvousing to fuel the ship. This is my refueling craft, and after this first launch, I have decided that, well, the Vesta is more fuel efficient. There's way too much weight here for me to do this again with this engine. I'll have to definitely use a larger one. I'll probably just go with a Wildcat or one of the stock LT45s, or I actually forgot what they're called, the 45 and 30. But I'm just waiting to get close enough so that I can actually select the docking port and then align these ships together. And hopefully it should be pretty painless to transfer this fuel. Okay, so the docking mode moves the prograde marker. I thought I was moving the docking marker. No, I want to change back to staging. It looks pretty close. I'll center this. Go back here. There we go. So I spent a little time playing with trying to think of a way to transfer the fuel, and I think the best thing I came up with is the TAC fuel balancer. I can select the fuel and the oxidizer. I don't want to balance it. I just want to transfer it. So I found out that I can dump all the fuel from a tank. And that's the max speed, I guess. And then if I dump another one, so I can just dump all of these. And I can see that these are the right tanks, because it's not really easy to tell which one is which and just exit or dump all the fuel out. That's the liquid fuel. So that's the oxidizer, so I need 4 tanks. It's probably these. I want to leave some fuel in the craft so that I can bring it home. There's probably enough fuel in that small tank to deorbit my ship. So I will empty all 4 of the big tanks, leave the small tank, and that is a successful first fuel dump. I can't distinguish between the vessels right now. So if I undock, this is the large vessel, and I now have 6,900 out of 43,000. So I will have to come back a few more times. That seems lower than I expect. So some of you may have been cringing when you saw me first attempt to use transfer fuel balancer. I was very curious why I only deposited less than 6,000 liquid fuel when I was carrying more than 13,000. If you were paying attention, you may have noticed that I opted to dump the fuel on accident. It was not intentional. I was playing with something that I was not familiar with, and bad things happened. I meant to do transfer out, which then means I have to lock this, otherwise it'll be redistributed to as another open container. So I will not make that mistake again. This should be the final docking with this ship. I have done it 2 more times. This is the 3rd. So this time, transfer out. And I believe, yeah. And then lock this so it doesn't get transferred to, transfer out, transfer out, transfer out. And because there's not enough capacity to fill that, it's only going to deposit some. Okay, so this should be... Okay, this is the one that I was confused for a second. This one should be full. So my lathe craft is full. So for the sake of this episode, I'm just going to undock this. I'll move to this vessel, and I will do what this mod is meant for. I'll unlock these 3 things. Or I guess those weren't locked, they were just empty. And then balance everything. So this will distribute everything evenly across all the tanks. And I will deorbit that later. So I'm just going to get this ship up to 6 million meters so that it exits into sauna, and then use that as a frame of reference for how I want to start my burn to lathe. So here is hopefully a better built experience machine for my 7 Kerbals. We are going to go pick up Hagella from Apter, plant a flag, and hopefully, I'm not sure that it will level these guys up to 3, but they will probably be 2.5, which is a good place to be. Alright guys, we're here on Apter trying to pick up Hagella. I don't have as much fuel as I intended. I thought I'd probably have like 1,200 left by the time I had already picked her up and was on my way. So I may have to just get to orbit and send somebody to rescue a whole bunch of Kerbals. It also looks like there isn't a good place to land. Looks like a successful landing. I'll turn off the RCS to make sure it can hold itself. I think that I will have to come back and get this into orbit later because I have a transfer window coming up in just about a day, and I think that it may take longer than that to get this going. So I need to go build a vessel, a manned vessel. I'm going to send one of my... I guess I'm sending Bob. I was going to say I'm going to send one of my scientists, but I have all of them here leveling up. So I will be sending Bob to Laythe, and I need to go construct a rocket that will hopefully be able to bring him home as well. So I have a maneuver that's about 24 million meters away, and I'm going to be shedding a fuel tank between now and then. So a lot of the dynamics are going to change for actually hitting this maneuver. Safe separation. Perfect. So now I have about 500 meters a second left, and it estimates about 2 minutes of burn time. But I'm not sure how offset this really is from my burn. I don't think that these nodes update after you make changes. I think this is probably kind of locked in now. And we have it. 22 million meters. That's something that we can definitely improve. Based on this extreme arc of this, I think that a good place to do a maneuver would probably be... Well, let me put a maneuver note on here. It's not letting me. So I think based on this positioning, a good place to do a adjustment would probably be down here. Here is Laythe. You can see it has some clouds. There are some islands, I believe, though it is hard to tell. I hope you guys are enjoying the series. Soon we will be scanning this planet with our probe. Shortly after, Bob will be arriving, and we will see if he can safely land and return home. After that, of course, we've got Laythe and Titanus probes that we will be getting to, so I look forward to exploring all of those with you. If you're enjoying the series, feel free to comment, like, and or subscribe, and I will see you in the next episode.